Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. We are here to talk about Dawn, Data for Workforce Nurturing. Dawn is a partnership that leverages data for the improvement of livelihoods of workers in Mozambique. Next slide, please. Here as speakers are Tiago Borges Coelho, he's founder of UX Information Technologies in Mozambique, and myself speaking, Rodrigo de Reyes, country director of Fundación Capital in Mozambique. Just to tell you about a team, because this is a partnership. First, UX Information Technologies. It's a Mozambican company that creates digital services, leverages legacy systems and mobile phones because of their ubiquity to enable inclusive and sustainable development. Data Elevates, which is also a partner, and unfortunately, because of time, they couldn't be here with us. They are an American company building capacity for social impact organizations and vulnerable populations to use data more effectively for good. And finally, Fundación Capital, which I represent. We work in advancing economic citizenship globally and at scale. Next one, please.
So let me tell you a little bit about Mozambique. So we're a country in the east side of Africa with roughly 30 million people, and we're a very young country. The median age is 18 years. Unfortunately, we have extreme poverty. More than half of our population lives in extreme poverty, and we constantly rank at the bottom of the Human Development and the Youth Development Index. Our labor force is around 14 million people, but 90% of our labor force operates in the informal sector. And as you can see, the monthly incomes are very much skewed towards poverty, with 67% of people earning less than $70 a month. But like most African countries in the sub-Saharan region, we have a high mobile penetration, but unfortunately, internet is still pretty low, as more than half of our population still use basic phones with no data capabilities. So this created a problem for us that we can sum up in: if we could generate more information about the labor markets, we could probably support people at scale in improving their livelihoods. And that's why we created Dawn. Rodri, Dawn?
Sorry, I cannot see the screen yet. So the solution to the problem that Tiago was mentioning, and leveraging the systems that we had already created, which are Bishkar and Connector, which Tiago is going to explain a bit more later. We decided to create Dawn, Data for Workforce Nurturing, as a data warehouse solution that processes anonymized user-generated data from these two systems. These two systems are digital platforms that serve informal workers in Mozambique. So we decided to join them through this data warehouse so that we could generate, process the data, generate insights and tips that could be shared back to workers. And with this information, they could improve their livelihoods. This was an experimental project in Mozambique, and it was the first for organizations. And as I was saying, collects, processes, and feeds data back to workers. We think that this is a way in which we are democratizing access to data, not just for workers. Workers are themselves making this data, so this is a way to loop back the data to them. But also, this information can be used by policymakers. So we like to think that it's a win-win solution for different actors in the field of informal work in Mozambique. Workers, because they get this information that is useful for them, and policymakers, because they can better design policy or make better informed decisions for policy as well.
Okay, so what is our solution? We have this platform that uses legacy system, mobile legacy systems like USSD and SMS. So it allows users with no internet, with basic mobile phones, or with internet and smartphones to access this service and find work opportunities there. So on one side, we have the Bishkat platform, and on the other side, Fundación Capital created the Connector, which is a virtual assistant chatbot that works over WhatsApp. So people with internet and smartphones can interact with this chatbot and receive information about the labor market. So these two platforms push anonymized raw data into the Dawn data warehouse. So basically, Dawn is a database and a data toolkit that takes this information from both platforms and then processes it to generate data insights. So information that might be useful for these workers and then is pushed back to the workers through both platforms, Biscat and Connector. And what is the information that we can push by analyzing the raw data from the platforms? Here are some examples. Rodri, can you take us through them?
Thanks. So this is just an example of how of how the messages are built for users. So, for example, we know the times in which clients connect to the system. So we can throw an insight to users like this one. Did you know that customers look for workers like you between 18 hours and 21 hours? Make sure your phone is close by in those times. This was important because along the way we were doing lots of focus groups and we noticed that people maybe didn't have their phones with them at that time when they were most in demand. So this was a good recommendation. And we also saw that many people missed their calls and that's why they didn't get a job. So this information was key for them to access more opportunities. Another example of the kind of data that we have in our system. It's harvest season now. If you have worked in harvesting before, make sure you update your profile on Biscat to get more jobs. This comes from demand data that we have in our system from clients in different zones of Mozambique, different areas of Mozambique, showing demand for different kinds of works. So since we have this information, we can also tell workers that at a certain point of the year, there's more of a certain job, and if they have the ability, they can update their profile, and they're more likely to get those jobs. And then price. We also have information about price. We can give workers a message like this one. Are you charging a competitive price? Check out Connector to find out the average price paid in your profession and location. People can use this, to understand what their price is in comparison to others and check if they can do something about it. On Connector, they can also check a price calculator. And with this price calculator, they can also understand if they're having a profit with this price. So not only are they competitive, but also are they having the adequate income that they deserve. It hasn't changed yet? Yeah, perfect. Thank you. So in terms of results, we started at 40,000 users when we started the project in 2021. Now the figures went up to 72,000 by the end of the project, and they're increasing. We also were very worried about the number of women in the platform. We wanted to make we wanted to make an inclusive platform, especially for women. So it was key for us at least doubling the number of women, and we achieved this. Also, as I was saying in the beginning, our main idea was how do we use data for users, for workers to increase their income. And during the project, this is what we did. The average income of workers increased at least 8% during the project and the implementation of Dawn. And finally, because we were also very worried about an ethical treatment of data, we made an ethics committee and we got specific training by our partner Data Elevates to process data ethically, to consider data ethics in all our processes. And that's why we created an ethics committee. And Thiago is going to tell us a bit more about how ethics play in our system.
Sure. So We position Dawn at the intersection of using inclusive technologies like USSD and SMS and onboarding users that never used the internet before with data science, so to understand this data and try to derive insights from it, but also development ethics, where we try to upskill our users towards better understanding and better outcomes for their personal development. So Don is right in the middle of these three big fields, because we deal with inclusive development since we're onboarding people that never used the internet before and are becoming familiarized with these information systems like and using USSD and SMS because it's free. They don't have to buy data and they can suddenly push and pull information from a system at zero cost using their basic feature phones, right? But on the other hand, if you intersect these inclusive technologies with data science, you realize that you have a lot of sensitive data. So how do you deal with consent for users sharing their data? How do you explain to them what is personal identifiable information, right? So we are very careful in treating this data by anonymizing, by getting consent from users, because we feel like we need to have a strong data ethics approach in order to treat this data and generate the insights that are so needed, but in a way that's respectful and protects the users. So this is where we position Dawn in terms of our goals. And that was it. Thank you very much. I think we have a couple of minutes to take some questions if there's time. And if you want to follow up and understand more about our work, you can visit dawn.org. We do have an open repository, a public repository on GitHub that we're going to update the link to the website right now. But if you search for Dawn, you're going to find it. And there we've created a sample of data that is collected on these platforms so people can play around and figure out if there's other tips and hints that can help us support our workers so they can get better outcomes and more work. Thank you very much.
Thank you.